Upon settling the rent with my reserve of funds, for my beloved spouse had once more neglected to fulfill her duty, I returned home bearing a repast from the gas station and a throbbing ache in my head. She beheld the fare before her and exclaimed, "Verily, thou hast a remarkable talent for rendering want even more distasteful." Then she cast it aside with disdain and proclaimed, "Endeavor once more on the morrow, fool." On that fateful eve, I came to the disheartening revelation that I was not a spouse, but merely a vessel of coin with a heartbeat. This morn she did summon me, her voice laden with tears and fervent pleas. Thou art familiar with such souls, the woeful wretches who permit themselves to be trampled upon until, at last, they do break asunder. Yet here I find myself at the hour of 2:47 past midnight, ensconced within my carriage in the lot of a grocery emporium that knows no rest, for I cannot bear the thought of returning to my own abode this eve. Strange how swiftly one's existence may transform into a tale fit for the scrolls of the Internet. It commenced with the dues owed for habitation. Once more, it hath come to pass that for the third time in a mere half-year, Schuyler hath neglected to fulfill her duty of payment. This is all the more perplexing, for she doth not engage in labor and possesses but a singular financial obligation, to transfer funds from our shared account to the portal of our landlord. A task that, in truth, requires but a fleeting moment of 90 seconds. This morn, my landlord did send a missive regarding the late fee, a sum of $65 now lost to the ether, akin to the $130 squandered from prior lapses of memory. Coin we surely cannot squander in this hour, yet alas, I have grown accustomed to such trials. From my post, enduring a lengthy toil of 12 hours, I did summon Schuyler, for our ranks are thinned, a phrase that doth veil the truth of our reluctance to employ sufficient hands. She regaled me with the customary tale of distraction, lamenting the perplexities of the payment portal, and bemoaning the weight of her many burdens at this present hour. For a span of 14 moons, she hath known not the toil of labor. Her fare is composed of fleeting moments from the realm of TikTok and the endless tales spun upon our Netflix stage. Thus, I did transfer the coin for mine abode from the reserve of my unforeseen needs. Once more, the reserve that once boasted nearly $8,000 a mere 2 years past now languishes at a meager $712, forsooth, as it seems my spouse's neglect of fundamental adult duties hath transformed into our most frequent calamity. Hasten forth to the hour of my return, as I navigate the path homeward after the toil of my labor. Mine own head doth throb as if a knave were employing my cranium for a most raucous drumming exercise. Mine energy hath fled, leaving me in a state of utter weariness. Since the hour of my melancholy repast at 11, I have partaken of naught. Thus, I make a brief sojourn at the fuel emporium close to our dwelling, procuring a selection of those ready-made sandwiches, a bag of chips, and a pair of soda bottles. Not of the finest fare, yet it shall suffice. As I cross the threshold at the hour of 8:23 in the evening, I behold Schuyler upon the couch, her gaze fixed upon the glowing screen of her device. The dwelling lies in disarray. Plates and vessels heaped within the basin, a testament to the passage of time, perchance from 3 days past. The refuse doth overflow, spilling forth its contents in disarray. The garments I did beseech her to cast into the washer remain ensconced within the hamper, yet alas, such is the way of things. Verily, I find myself too weary to engage in such a quarrel. I placed the fare from the station upon the table of coffee, and uttered a few words regarding our evening repast. Schuyler lifts her gaze from the device, casts her eyes upon the repast, and then speaks forth her thoughts. Alas, thou hast a remarkable talent for rendering the bitter draught of destitution even more unpalatable. I find myself in a state of utter immobility, as if bound by unseen chains. Did she truly just utter such words? After I have but recently settled our dues for shelter? Upon the conclusion of my laborious 12-hour toil? After she rendered naught in service to our abode this day? Ere I might offer a retort, she doth sweep her arm across the table of coffee, sending the victuals tumbling to the ground. The effervescent liquid doth burst forth upon our tapestry. Attempt once more on the morrow, foolish one. In that moment, a spark ignited within me, as if one hath toiled in the shadows of confusion, only to behold, in a moment of clarity, the harmonious assembly of fragments, revealing the grand tapestry of understanding. Though 4 years have passed in the sacred bond of matrimony, I find myself yet to embrace the true essence of a husband. I am but a vessel of currency, animated by the breath of life. From the very first day, I have borne the burden of all expenses. In the dawn of time, it came to pass that Schuyler found herself in a state of employment's absence. Then it was for the reason that she was discovering her fervor. Then it was due to the fierce contest of the employment realm at this present hour. Then it was due to her grappling with the weariness of spirit. The justifications did shift, yet the truth remained unaltered. My purse doth fill, yet naught doth depart. In the interim, her expenditures remain unimpeded, continuing unabated. Garments anew, luxurious potions for the skin, and a ceaseless stream of sustenance delivered, for the toil of the kitchen doth wear one down. Yet, each occasion I dare to mention it, I find myself cast as the villain. To inquire about the whereabouts of our funds is deemed a form of financial tyranny. I am exercising caution in proposing a budget. Mine is a skeptical heart, for I ponder why she doth require yet another pair of shoes, priced at a sum of $300. Behold, as I stand witness to the effervescent liquid's slow descent into our cherished carpet, a fate that surely befalls me to rectify. In me a spark hath perished, or perchance a flame hath been ignited anew. Alas, I find myself in a state of uncertainty. I did not raise my voice. I did not engage in dispute. With a swift turn, I departed, entered my carriage, and set forth upon the road, leaving all behind. Abandoned her in that place, with her device, her demeanor, and her disarray. In a fit of aimless wandering, I found myself in this very parking lot, penning these thoughts upon my device, for alas, I possess not a soul with whom to share such musings. Schuyler hath ensured this through the passage of many years. Mine companions were naught but wretches. Mine kin were steeped in poison. It is a curious jest how those who once stood as my allies have turned into sources of strife. Mine device hath been besieged by a flurry of messages for the past hour. Words upon words, wrought from ire's first spark. Wherefore art thou, then, cunningly artful? Fear doth grip my heart. Pray, return to thy abode. Then the art of deception. Thou dost overstate thine concerns. Verily, it was but a jest. And now I find myself in deep regret, my dear. Pray, return to thy abode. Verily, it was not my intent. Mine replies have yet to grace their inquiries. In place of other pursuits, I have been engaged in the study of numbers. Chill, unyielding numbers. In the span of 4 years, I have bestowed upon our shared existence the sum of roughly $192,000, covering the necessities of life, the burdens of bills, and her own indulgences. In recompense, she hath rendered approximately $18,000 from the fleeting time she hath toiled. And thus, we speak only of the monetary aspect. To delve into the depths of emotional toil, the burdens of domestic duties I bear whilst toiling in the realm of employment, the perpetual dance upon fragile shells, the companions who have slipped away, the gatherings of kin I have forsaken, and the aspirations I have set aside, would be a tale most sorrowful indeed. Forsooth, I find myself ensnared in a web of denial these past 4 years, whispering sweet reassurances that all shall improve when she secures the fitting employment, when our coffers are fuller, when her burdens are lightened. When, oh when, dost thou arrive? Yet this eve, as I beheld her cast aside wholesome fare into the refuse, whilst branding me a fool, the verity at last revealed itself to mine eyes. There exists not a moment in time. This be the moment. This is her true essence. This is our essence, our very being. Or perchance, this is the essence of our former selves. Forsooth, I am weary of being a mere vessel of gold. On the morrow, I shall embark upon the endeavor of establishing a new account at a bank of another kind. I shall redirect the course of my direct deposit henceforth. I shall summon an attorney forthwith. And I shall endeavor to discern the visage of separation when one hath devoted 4 years to being the financial bastion for another. Alas, I ponder what course she shall take when the flow of coin doth cease. Perhaps she shall summon her progenitors, who are said to be most wretched, yet she doth accept their birthday tributes without a hint of hesitation. Perchance she might seek gainful employment, or discover another fool to sustain her extravagant way of living. It doth not concern me. Verily, thus stands my current state. In the stillness of the night, as the clock nears the 3rd hour, I find myself ensconced within my chariot, devising a scheme to liberate myself from a union that, from its very inception, seems to have favored but one heart. Strange it is, yet I find a sense of relief within my breast, as if I have drawn in the sweet air of life anew, after an age of suffocating silence. Hath anyone else traversed a path akin to this? What counsel might one seek to safeguard their financial well-being amidst the dissolution of a matrimonial union? Forsooth, a whisper within me doth suggest that when Schuyler doth perceive her means of sustenance departing forthwith, a tempest of discord shall surely ensue with great swiftness. Behold, an update hath arrived. To commence, I extend my gratitude for the encouragement bestowed upon my previous discourse. To rise from slumber and find mine eyes met with a multitude of remarks from souls who have traversed the same path as I, was a mixture of affirmation and melancholy. Seeking affirmation, for I am not mad. Alas, it is a sorrowful truth that countless souls roam the earth, mere vessels of currency. 16 days have passed since the unfortunate affair at the dining establishment of the gas station. 16 days of what I can only liken to a battle of coin and ledger, waged with figures and calculations in place of swords and shields. Upon the dawn following my missive, I didst make haste to a credit union yonder, where I did establish new accounts with great fervor. The fair maiden at the counter bestowed upon me a series of anxious glances whilst I stumbled through my tale of woe regarding the accounts that eluded my wife's grasp. When I at last ceased my ceaseless discourse, she merely glided a parchment across the table and proclaimed that she had encountered this ere now. Neither censure nor inquiry shall be found here. Merely the essence of efficacy. In that moment, the realization struck me with profound clarity. This doth occur with such frequency that they have devised a method to address it. I didst redirect mine direct deposit, which, thank the fates, would not arrive until the next pay period, leaving just enough in our shared coffer to meet the pressing demands of our immediate debts. Thus, I devoted 3 days to the crafting of spreadsheets, transcending mere rudimentary budgets. I delved into the depths of our union with the scrutiny of a meticulous investigator. 4 years of dealings meticulously arranged into classifications, accompanied by brief annotations elucidating the purpose of each. The outcomes did shine with clarity. In the span of the preceding year, Schuyler didst expend the sum of $11,642 upon garments, adornments, and what I, with a benevolent heart, did classify as personal treasures. Verily, 'tis nearly $1,000 each month spent on sundries, whilst I toiled beyond the hours and dined on humble ramen to keep my purse in balance. And those fates were not even converging. Lo! We were burdened with a sum of $8,300 in credit card debt, a weight I was blissfully unaware of until I delved into the depths of our accounts. It appears that those moments of neglecting to settle debts extended far beyond mere lodgings. I didst print all, adorned with hues and marked by tiny sticky banners. Forsooth, if I were to bring ruin upon my union, I would do so with meticulously arranged proof. Verily, to behold 4 years of fiscal torment displayed in the confines of a ledger doth stir strange emotions within the mind. I found myself caught in a tempest of emotions, torn between the urge to retch and the desire to bestow upon myself a hearty congratulation for at last unveiling the verity. Upon my return to my abode 3 days hence from the fateful occurrence, I beheld that Schuyler had undergone a remarkable metamorphosis. The dwelling was immaculate, a true testament to care and diligence. She had prepared a repast most cherished by mine own palate. She wouldst even don the visage of beauty. The costly treasures she reserves for moments of desire. The artifice was so apparent it bordered on endearing, akin to observing a young child endeavor to deceive regarding the consumption of sweet confections, whilst their visage bore the telltale signs of indulgence in cocoa delights. At our humble kitchen table, I took my binder of financial records and set it between us. With a steady voice, I began to speak, revealing my awareness of the credit card debt. I shared how I had redirected my paycheck and meticulously calculated the portion of our shared expenses I would shoulder henceforth, as well as the precise amount she would need to contribute. For the initial half-minute, she beheld me with a gaze, as though her mind struggled to comprehend the reality that I was, indeed, asserting my own worth. Then did the tears flow forth. Then cometh the charges. Then the vows to transform. The timeless trifecta of cunning manipulation. So oft had mine eyes beheld this scene that it seemed as though it were penned by a quill, destined to unfold in such a manner. Yet on this occasion I did not yield. This occasion found me armed with my tome of verity and a fervent indignation potent enough to illuminate a modest realm. Upon the dawning of her understanding that tears bore no fruit, she resolved to alter her approach. Commenced to speak of how her companion Lindsay had recently traversed a tumultuous period with her spouse, yet they had managed to reconcile their differences. How the sacred bond of matrimony is a testament to mutual support in the face of adversity. How she might secure employment on the morrow, should it bring me joy. I had but recently turned to the 23rd leaf of my tome. The parchment bearing her prior vows to seek employment, meticulously inscribed with dates and classified by rationale. That is when the tempest did arise. She didst hurl upon me every epithet known to man. Accused I was of wielding financial dominion over her, thus constraining her access to the coin. She declared that I had ever been a figure of thrift and wretchedness, and that her presence by my side was but a gesture of compassion. Pray, dost thou know what the most peculiar aspect was? To hear her utter such words aloud did indeed lift my spirits considerably, as though she were finally speaking truthfully in the entirety of our union. That eve, I took my leave to the chamber unoccupied. Establish what my companion Lawson doth refer to as a haven of melancholy. Merely a humble mattress laid upon the ground, my trusty device aglow, and a modest array of garments to see me through. Though it bore little, it was indeed my own. And for the first time in many a year, I did slumber through the night, untroubled by the spectre of financial worry. The following week unfolded as if I were dwelling with a mysterious soul, traversing a myriad of personas in search of one that might resonate with my essence. On a certain day, she would don the guise of sweetness and contrition, brewing coffee whilst inquiring about the happenings of my day. In the next moment, she would don a frosty demeanor, casting doors with a forceful clang and exhaling with theatrical despair. Then she would be most sensible, taking a seat with the scrolls of employment and beseeching my aid with her parchment of qualifications. I maintained a courteous demeanor whilst keeping my distance, responded to inquiries with brevity and clarity, did not succumb to her provocations when she endeavored to ignite quarrels. The vast expanse of the digital realm doth refer to it as the art of grey rocking, transforming into a figure of such tedium and indifference that the individual relinquishes their desire to exert influence over thee. Lo and behold, it doth indeed function. Yet, the true transformations commenced when the coffers were depleted. Lo, a week hence, after I did redirect mine earnings, her card of credit met with decline whilst she sought to procure sustenance through delivery. In the chamber set aside, I found myself, yet the echoes of her voice reached mine, as she wrestled with the device, attempting various cards, her vexation mounting with each passing moment. The morrow brought forth her attempt to procure an item through the vast expanse of the internet, yet she found herself beset by the same vexing dilemma. On that fateful afternoon, a missive from the calendar did arrive, heralding the time for our car insurance to be rendered due, something she had ever deftly managed with our shared coin. Yet, alas, in that account, there lay insufficient funds. The weight of truth was beginning to dawn upon the mind. One transaction declined in its turn. In the dimly lit kitchen, she didst ensnare me 2 nights past, pressing me with fervent inquiry regarding my deeds. With a serene demeanor, I articulated that I was presently contributing precisely half of our communal expenditures. Expenses for habitation, sustenance, and the chariot's protection. Neither more nor less, I beseech thee. If she desired coin for her pleasures, she must needs offer her share. Forsooth, for a brief moment, I did believe she might lay her hand upon me in wrath. Her visage underwent a most captivating metamorphosis. Alas, what a tumultuous stir! Incredulity, fury, computation, and at last, the bitter taste of defeat. In but a mere quarter of a minute. Upon the break of day, I arose to discover a missive upon the kitchen counter, declaring her intent to seek refuge with her companion Aurora for a span of days, to ponder matters of the heart. She gathered her device of creation, adorned her visage, and packed garments sufficient for a week's sojourn. Pray, dost thou know what? The dwelling doth seem more spacious, in a manner most curious, as though her ire and sense of superiority had occupied a realm of existence, now relinquished, allowing me to draw in the air anew. I am not so foolish as to believe this matter has reached its conclusion. Schuyler is not one to relinquish her source of sustenance without a valiant struggle. Yet, For the inaugural occasion in our union, I find no trepidation in facing that battle. I possess mine own binder. I possess mine own distinct ledgers. And of utmost significance, I have received assurance that my anticipation for a grown individual to comport themselves with maturity is not a sign of folly. Mine attorney, a woman of forthright disposition akin to my pragmatic aunt, doth declare that I find myself in a favorable circumstance. We dwell in borrowed abodes. No offspring. Though it is a lamentable plight that we share burdens of debt, we find solace in the absence of shared estate. She now prepares the parchment of separation, delineating our obligations in accordance with the origins of their creation. Thus, it doth appear that Schuyler is on the verge of discovering that those days of pampering and fine raiment were not bestowed without cost. Alas, I am aware that sorrow ought to dwell within my breast. This marks the conclusion of my union, yet I find myself akin to one who has borne a heavy burden of stones for 4 long years, and at last I have laid it aside. Verily, mine shoulders dost feel as if they have been unburdened. This morn, fair Aurora did send a missive, proclaiming that Schuyler doth wish to convene and mend the rift betwixt them. Lo, it seems she hath wept without cease, coming to the grim understanding of her actions. I have consented to rendezvous with her on the morrow at a quaint coffee establishment, a place devoid of tumult where she may not hurl objects as she did at our last repast, nor raise her voice in a manner that would bring her shame. Mine heart doth whisper that this shall be a spectacle most wondrous, a performance to be cherished for all eternity. Teardrops worthy of the grandest stage, vows of transformation, perchance a touch of calculated allure. Yet this occasion, I shall embark with unclouded vision and a plan for departure. We shall provide an update post our gathering. In any event, I shall not return to the state of being a mere vessel of currency, animated yet devoid of purpose. That incarnation of my being perished on the eve when my repast met its untimely fate within the refuse receptacle. At long last, an update hath arrived. Verily, it hath come to pass. She did command a latte, priced at $12. It may appear a curious nuance to dwell upon, yet witnessing Schuyler nonchalantly part with $12 for an extravagant brew whilst lamenting her financial woes encapsulated the essence of our bond in a singular, exquisite instant. The gathering at the coffee shop unfolded precisely as I had foreseen. She did appear as though she had just emerged from a melancholic tale, with mascara gently smeared and locks arranged in a manner that spoke of both chaos and beauty. Adorned in that azure garment, I once proclaimed it did enhance the brilliance of her gaze. The artifice was so manifest it bordered on the remarkable. For 2 unbroken hours, she traversed the melodies of her finest creations. Weeping, oaths, manipulative entreaties, and when all other stratagems faltered, subtle insinuations regarding the allure that her colleague Gage perceives in her. All meticulously devised to render me either a gallant savior poised to rescue her or a nefarious fiend wreaking havoc upon her existence. 4 years past, it might have borne fruit. Alas, a fortnight past, it mayhap could have succeeded. Yet, as I sat opposite her, the counsel of my legal adviser echoing in my thoughts and the tranquillity of 16 nights' rest coursing through me, all I perceived was a deceiver, whose favored target had at last become astute to her ruse. I did present the parchment of separation upon the table surface, proclaiming to her that 2 paths lay before her, to affix her signature and thus proceed with the dignity of adults, or to engage in a battle, squandering her remaining coin upon the machinations of the law. The accord was most equitable, indeed. Verily, I did extend my hand to bear the burden of 60% of our shared credit card debt, even though my meticulous accounts did plainly reveal that she was the architect of the greater portion thereof. She cast it aside without a glance, declaring that we might navigate this matter if I would cease my trivial squabbles over coin. Ah, the ever-familiar Schuyler, handling a fiscal cataclysm as though it were but a trifling quarrel over the evening's entertainment selection. I departed whilst she remained, her words flowing forth on the prospect of a new beginning, my exit occurring in the midst of her discourse. It seemed as though I had stepped into a scene of great import, yet instead of a symphony of stirring melodies, there lingered only the uncomfortable rustling of patrons in the café, striving to avert their gaze from the sorrowful figure weeping in their midst. It hath been 37 days since that fateful moment. Since that time, existence hath been tumultuous yet on the path of betterment. Verily, I find myself in a state akin to purging the remnants of a 4-year entanglement, as if I were ridding my soul of an addiction most profound. In those initial weeks, The trials were most severe. Plagued by restless dreams and a tempest of doubt, I found myself gazing upon my device, contemplating whether to reach forth and declare a reversal of my intent. Yet lo! An unforeseen turn of events didst arrive. The dawn's gentle hand did beckon unto me. It appears that Schuyler's companion proved to be less steadfast than Schuyler had envisioned. Upon the passage of a fortnight, as the tale spun by Schuyler echoed in her ears, and the sight of her consuming Aurora's provisions with nary a thought of reciprocity weighed heavily upon her heart, Aurora found herself compelled to seek answers. Then she began to perceive inconsistencies. Then she didst seek me out upon the realms of social discourse, and did send me a missive. We did convene for a cup of brew. Mine is a steady flow, a mere 5 coins, as I toil to mend the fiscal wounds wrought by my union. Aurora, with a hint of reluctance, confessed that Schuyler had been casting aspersions upon my character to all and sundry for many a year, portraying herself as the enduring spouse, steadfastly bearing the burdens of her hapless partner amid his professional tribulations. The utter antithesis of existence. Yet, what doth shine the brightest? Aurora possessed the evidence of her transactions. Images captured of Schuyler boasting within her circle of companions regarding her cunning ability to have me shoulder all the expenses whilst she retained her riches for her own coffers. Images of retail revelries inscribed with the jest that the spouse remains unaware, writings lamenting the necessity of feigning a search for employment to placate my persistent inquiries. 4 years of my union unraveled through venomous missives. Upon beholding their presence, I felt not the sting of ire, but rather a sense of affirmation. As if at long last, one receives the assurance that one's mind remains steadfast and untroubled. Aurora didst express her contrition for having placed her trust in the fabrications spun by Schuyler. She did declare that she had perceived certain ominous signs, yet she chose to disregard them, for Schuyler's charm was most persuasive. Then she performed an act most unforeseen. Proffered to stand as a witness should the tempest of divorce unleash its fury. She declared that she could not remain idle whilst witnessing another being so cruelly exploited. It appears that not all souls possess a moral compass as askew as that of my soon-to-be former spouse. As for Schuyler, the truth descended upon her with the force of a mighty tempest, mere weeks after our gathering at the coffee establishment. Her means of monetary exchange were utterly depleted. Her progenitors, whom I would come to discover, were not the fiends she had painted them to be, but rather ordinary souls wearied by the burden of sustaining her extravagant ways, did resolutely decline to part with further coin. And lo, Aurora did at last beseech her to commence her share of the rent or seek a new abode to dwell. Thus commenced the ringing of the device, heralding a series of communications. Thrice, 4 times, or even 5 in a single day. Messages of lamentation interspersed with fierce declarations of wrath. Expressions that traverse the spectrum from deep longing for thy beloved to foreboding proclamations of solitude and despair in the twilight of existence. The tumult of emotions did wear upon my spirit, yet my counsel had steeled me for such trials. Chronicle all matters, reply with brevity, and shun the tumultuous mind. Thus did I proceed. Then arrived the day I had been silently fearing. Day of relocation hath arrived. I chanced upon a modest studio dwelling across the way. Though it bears no extravagant adornments, it remains tidy, boasts commendable water pressure, and, above all, carries solely my name upon the lease. I didst make arrangements to gather mine belongings whilst Schuyler was purportedly engaged in a pursuit of employment. Her initial in many moons, fortuitously arranged at the very moment she found herself in need of coin for her dwelling. Yet, she found herself not amidst the scrutiny of an interview. She awaited in our dwelling, perched upon the couch as though she were a formidable adversary in a game of fate I had no desire to engage. In a most peculiar instant, I found myself on the brink of mirth. Verily, she would lay a cunning trap for me. Verily, she doth complicate matters beyond necessity. Verily, she donned that azure garment once more. Mine companion, Holden, who had ventured forth to assist in my relocation, didst instantly grow tense beside me. He had been regaled with tales aplenty, yet now he beheld the spectacle of the Schuyler show in the flesh for the very first time. What ensued was a pair of the most disquieting hours I have ever known. Schuyler, in a dance of erratic motions, flits between the noble task of aiding in the packing of cherished dishes, a curious spectacle, and the lamentable fate of inadvertently letting slip those items of great import, a most expected turn of events. Engaging in trivial discourse with Holden, as though we were all comrades in leisure, proved to be most disquieting. Inquiring with keen precision regarding my newly acquired abode, which I have purposefully shrouded in ambiguity. Throughout the entire affair, I found myself in eager anticipation of the tumult, the cries of despair, the hurled items, and the grand pronouncement. Yet it did not arrive. As I bore forth the final box, she did present unto me an envelope, declaring that much contemplation had occupied her mind. Within lay the accord of separation, inscribed with signatures. No alterations shall be made. No parleys shall be had. Merely her mark upon each highlighted line. I found myself gazing upon it, as though it were a tempest ready to unleash its fury within my grasp. After a fortnight of contention on each matter, she hath simply acquiesced? It did not align with reason. Upon that eve, as I reclined upon my fresh mattress upon the bare floor of my desolate studio, a sense of familiarity washed over me, reminiscent of my sorrowful refuge in the spare chamber. In that moment, a missive from Aurora arrived, illuminating all that had been shrouded in mystery. It seems that Schuyler hath encountered a gentleman at a tavern. A gentleman adorned with a splendid timepiece and a luxurious chariot, who deemed her tales of a domineering former suitor to be most pitiable. A gentleman who had previously extended an invitation for her to take refuge at his abode until she regained her footing. She hath discovered a fresh source of coin, and forthwith, the swift dissolution of our union became her most prudent course. Relief should have coursed through my veins, and indeed, a fragment of my being experienced such a sentiment. Yet another part did sense this strange compulsion to forewarn the unfortunate soul, to present unto him mine spreadsheets and captured images, to rescue him from the fate I had narrowly evaded. I did not, indeed. There are certain truths that one must grasp through the trials of experience. The weeks that have passed since then have unfolded in a manner most peculiar, yet oddly mundane. To labor I venture forth, and upon my return, I find solace in my modest yet well-kept abode. With steady resolve, I am gradually restoring my treasury to the sum of $1,012 at present. I embark upon a culinary journey, striving to elevate my humble skills beyond the mere basics of a solitary bachelor. I have procured a budgeting application that doth not incite within me the urge to cast my device across the chamber. The dissolution of the union was concluded in the week past. No spectacle, no grand performance, merely the ink upon the parchment. And a feeling of uncanny void enveloped me as I beheld the term inscribed upon that which was once the paramount pledge of my existence. Alas, I long to conclude with sagacity most profound, yet verily, I find myself still in the throes of contemplation. There are times when I find myself yearning to grasp my device, eager to share with her a jest that tickles my fancy. Awakening in a state of bewilderment, I find the absence of her presence upon the other side of the bed weighs heavily upon my heart. 4 years of customs doth not vanish with the break of dawn. Yet I am also discovering facets of my being that have lain in slumber for many a year. I return to my former pastime of gaming. Once more, I find myself in discourse with my sister. I procured tickets to a grand concert, yet failed to reckon the number of humble Roman feasts I must endure to balance the expense. Upon the eve that hath just passed, I did procure sustenance from afar. Not of the extravagant sort, merely the humble fare of the Orient from the establishment near by. As I reclined upon my well-worn settee, indulging in orange chicken directly from its vessel whilst gazing upon the flickering screen of my laptop, a fleeting moment of exquisite, mundane bliss enveloped me. No soul did cast a critical eye upon my culinary selection. No soul did squander coin we lacked. No soul did belittle my presence upon this earth. Though I possessed not wealth nor the laurels of triumph, nor had I attained complete restoration, yet I found myself unshackled and at liberty. And shouldst thou ponder, verily, I did bestow a gratuity upon the bearer of my sustenance. 1/5. Forsooth, a few among us do grasp the worth of the labors wrought by others. Thus concludes our discourse on updates, save for the occurrence of some most extraordinary event. Gratitude I extend for thine attentive ear, fair Reddit. Who could have foreseen that a repast at a humble gas station would alter the very course of my existence?